So Airbnb is down today. What's it doing year to date? It's pretty much breaking even. It's going to announce on February 11th, which is in about 2.5 weeks. It's $82 billion market cap, 10 billion in revenue. Forward P is 31. Okay. So the one thing that I am concerned about Airbnb, I'm a big Airbnb stockholder. I own quite a bit of Airbnb, and I think it's here. So I have $87,000 invested. It's worth $102,000. So I'm in it to win it with the Airbnb, but this slowing the growth concerns me. That's the one concern I have on Airbnb. That it's down to kind of a good growth rate because that's a pretty good number, right? 3.7 billion. That is one of the concerns that I have. If they can accelerate that growth, man, they'll make me happy, and I think the market's going to start buying up their shares. Free cash flow, I love this trend. Look at that. Boom. They make $4 billion of free cash flow because they don't own any real estate. They just participate in the rental of privately owned homes to vacationers like myself, and they get to have these awesome margins. Really good business. And it's kind of like the sharing economy, right? They don't have to put a bunch of capital into the business. Remember, I think earlier today, I talked about Disney versus Netflix. Disney has to put a lot of capital into their business because they have legacy businesses. Airbnb does not. They do not put much capital into their business, but they get to grow around the world very quickly because it's not a capital intensive industry that they've created. So that looks great. It is a stock that, one of the reasons why I continue to be an investor of Airbnb is that they are the best experience to the traveler, in my opinion. I owned two vacation rental properties, and I tried to rent them on Airbnb, Booking, VRBO, and Flipkey. Those are the four of the top companies. Airbnb was like dominant. 90% of the reservations came through Airbnb. It wasn't even close. And Booking was number 2. And then number 3, I'm going to say was VRBO, but they were just getting destroyed by Airbnb, and then Flipkey. Now, when I go to Europe, I do Airbnbs, and I'm curious, and I talk to the property operators or owners, and Booking does do really well in Europe. I would say that, but so does Airbnb. Down in Latin America, I think Airbnb's really, but at least Mexico. I traveled down to Mexico, and I travel up in Canada as well. And Airbnb does really well. So in general, I think the experience to the person that's, to the traveler, the Airbnb experience is, I think, the best. The other ones are kind of noisy. Like Booking resembles like Expedia, and those travel sites to me are really noisy. They promote too many things at you. I just want to find a nice place to stay, and I want the experience to be really cool. Like the experience we got planned later today, we're going to fly out, and it's going to be on a really cool property. That's what I get out of Airbnb, and I think it's different. I think it's funner. It's less expensive. There's just a lot of things there that are differentiators in the experience for Airbnb. So I'm in it long haul for Airbnb. If they can start growing, that'd be awesome. If they can merge with like Uber, that'd be a super company. Maybe even acquire Lyft. How much is Lyft these days? Lyft is getting destroyed it's getting eaten alive by Lyft. And now you got Waymo coming into their business. It's a $5 billion company. So maybe Airbnb can acquire Lyft and have another product out there and kind of operate it better, because Lyft isn't doing anything. Meanwhile, Uber is growing by leaps and bounds. And I saw a graph where in San Francisco, Waymo has really grown really fast at Lyft's expense because Uber continues to grow in the city of San Francisco. But Lyft is beginning to really falter. So maybe Airbnb can start acquiring some businesses, making themselves bigger, but grow right, kind of like Google Alphabet. They grew really, really intelligently. Meta, they grew really intelligently. They added on companies that made sense to them, that they could really run and can actually add value to that business. Like Meta acquired Instagram, genius acquisition. Google acquired YouTube, genius acquisition. So if they can do that, I think Airbnb could really, really rock this world, because they are a special company in my mind. So that's Airbnb. And if you're curious about how they name the company, so I think that the phrase is necessity is the necessity is the root of innovation, or necessity is the fuel of innovation. So there was three guys that lived in San Francisco. They were fairly young, and they were having a tough time making enough money to pay rent. So they thought, hey, let's put some air mattresses in our apartment on Craigslist, if you're familiar with Craigslist, and rent them out. Because I think people, to stay in San Francisco or in New York, it costs a lot of money. Hotels are really expensive. I stayed in New York with my wife, and it was almost $600 a night to stay at a Marriott. And the room was okay. It was located in a really nice spot. That's why we got it. That's a lot of money, right? So these guys put these air mattresses on the floor and offer them for $50. You can crash there. And they sold them out. And they got so much demand. They're like, hey, let's start a company and we'll start renting out, a place for people to stay. And then they kept advancing the service. Pretty soon it was whole homes, and the whole concept of people that own homes can rent out their homes. It doesn't have to be a hotel operator. And boom, the company was created. Such a cool little story. And the three founders took off with it, and now it's Airbnb.